Hey guys, it's Rogaway here, and guess what? It is time for another tutorial. Alright, and today we are looking at how to create a composite in Photoshop using different pictures to basically create something that looks like it belongs together. In this case, it's video game related. It could be anything. You could basically pick a topic that you really like. It could be your favorite band, it could be a movie, it could be a show that you like, it could be whatever you like, and basically these same sort of techniques apply. Now, some of the things we're doing here are special effects, I would say, but the actual process of creating selections and putting these together remains relatively the same no matter what you're doing. So I chose Fallout 4, a great game, as my topic for this composite. I'm just going to show you really quickly what I've gotten here. We're also going to be using custom brushes. I'm going to show you how to load those up and how to use those in your designs as well. So let's take a look at the pictures first. We got background. Pretty typical Fallout scene right here. We got an explosion. We got the logo. We got a mushroom cloud. And we've got the power armor. Alright, so all of this is going to be combined to create a pretty cool looking, I guess, wallpaper slash composite design from all these different elements. Now, before we start, I want to say that I do not own these images. I basically just went on Google, found them, thought they could work together, and that's where I started. So it is for educational purposes only, but this is to help you get better at working in Photoshop. So, background. We're going to start with that. We're going to open it up with Photoshop. Now, like I said, this in itself is a great image. All right, it's really well done. It's really cool. This alone could be a nice wallpaper. We're going to improve on it though. Okay, so we got this, this scene, this post-apocalyptic nuclear sort of city from the game. And so that's our starting point. We've got this nice high-res image. And just make sure when you're looking for pictures in Google that you're searching for large images. And if you're not sure how to do that, you can watch my other videos on how to set that in Google. But that's where we're going to start. Now, right away, when I looked at this picture, I just loved the way the sun was coming in from the side, and I thought to myself, we can change this sun into basically a nuclear explosion because we've already got the bright light coming from the left side. Okay, so let's start with that. Now we're going to start by opening the mushroom cloud. And we've got the background, we open the mushroom cloud, and you'll notice now we got two tabs, background, mushroom cloud, and we're off to a start here. Now, I just want the clouds. I don't want anything else from this photo, just the clouds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the magic wand tool. Now, if you don't see it, if you see quick selection, you want to go down to the fourth tool, click and hold, and find the magic wand. Very important that up in the corner here, see where my cursor is, right here, you want to keep add to selection on. You also want the tolerance somewhat low. I'm going to leave it about 15 because we do have a lot of shades that are kind of similar, especially down here. And so we're going to add to selection. And the reason we're doing that is because when that option is on and we click, okay, you'll notice it doesn't get all the blue. But because we have add to selection on, we can click the next part and it's going to do exactly what it says. It's going to add on to the selection that we already have. So I'm going to keep clicking, going nuts here, clicking all the blue until I get the entire sky selected. All right, now there we go. Pretty quick, pretty easy. Like I said, it's pretty solid blue, not too difficult. But of course we are now we have the background selected. We want to actually have the mushroom cloud selected. We don't want the background selected. So we are going to invert our selection by going select, inverse, shift, option I, Okay, and we're going to put that back onto the cloud instead. Now, if I was to just delete this, or sorry, not delete this, but move this, I'm going to just show you really quickly. I don't like the fact that this is such a harsh edge, and the Magic Wand tends to do that. It leaves a very harsh edge. So what we're going to do is we're going to modify this selection a little bit. We are going to go to Select. We're going to go to Modify. We're going to contract it by 2 pixels, which basically, if I zoom in, makes it a couple pixels smaller than the area that was selected. I'm also going to soften that edge by going to Select, Modify, Feather. And I'm going to feather it by 2 pixels. And what that's going to do is it's going to leave a nice soft edge. Okay, so when we look at that, we have this nice, soft, cloudy edge, which is exactly what we want. And now we're going to drag it with the Move tool over to the background image. Now, the way I just did that was to click and hold and drag and drop it in there. Now, this looks horrible. So I'm just going to scale it up a bit with Command-T, enlarge it a bit. We want that sun to basically be the explosion. So we're going to kind of align it with the sun, something like that. And now what I could do, probably the better way to do it, is I'm going to add a layer mask by clicking down at the bottom of the layers palette. And I'm going to use a black paintbrush, okay, set very soft, probably about 20% or so, and a fairly large size. Now, remember the shortcut for changing your brush quickly. Next to the P key on the keyboard, you will see 2 brackets to the right. Those allow you to change your brush size bigger and smaller very quickly. Now, just make sure your cap locks key is on is not on, because otherwise you'll see a crosshair rather than a brush. So now I am going to paint. Whoa, it doesn't look soft at all. We're going to go back to soft. Oh, I'm on the pencil tool. Shoot, I got to be on the brush tool. Okay, and I'm going to once again set that super soft. That is way too big. But I'm going to paint again, and now I'm going to end up with this nice soft edge. Now, I want to leave some of these clouds coming into the city, something like that. Now, it still looks horrible. It looks totally fake. But now we can go and change the blending mode of this layer. So I click the thumbnail part, and I'm just going to quickly flip through until I find one that looks decent. Now, we're not trying to make it look super realistic yet. Not until later. And we're just going to flip through. Now, I've already done this already, and I liked soft light. Okay, I also liked overlay. It was pretty good too. Okay, you can try vivid light or other options. Again, you can experiment, but I'm going to go with soft light because you'll see at the end that soft light makes a really nice effect. Okay, so there we go. Now we're just going to, again, we're going to go back to our layer mask here and just touch it up a bit. Don't worry that it looks really fake right now. We are going to make it look good, I promise. But it's going to take time. Okay? Patience. Now that we're done with this, we can actually close this off. We don't have to save it. And we are going to move on to explosion. At the time that this video was posted, the source files for this tutorial are available in the description. So you can follow along if you'd like, modify it, do whatever you want to it. Kind of get the same effect. So now, same deal, Magic Wand 15. We've got a nice even sky here. It's not too bad. It's pretty close in color. So we can just start clicking. Okay? And you'll notice that pretty quickly, pretty easily, we get most of that sky selected nicely. Might want to get under the clouds here, as the cloud of smoke as well. And that was pretty quick and easy. All right? We are going to modify this a bit again. We're going to go to Select, Modify, Contract. Same deal as the mushroom cloud. Whoa, I screwed up. See that? What happened there is I forgot to invert the selection. Right now I have the sky selected and not the explosion. So I have to actually invert it first and then go Select, Modify, Contract. 2 pixels. and soften the edge. Once again, filter, oh sorry, select, modify, feather, 2 pixels, okay. And now I can drag that explosion over. Boom! Kaboom! And there it is. We got this massive explosion happening over here. We're going to press Command T, and we're going to shrink it down, roughly the same size, a little smaller than the mushroom cloud itself. We got all this crap at the bottom, this train and all this other stuff in this picture, so we're going to have to edit that out right now too. We're going to hit Enter or Return, depending on if you're Mac or PC. We're going to add a layer mask, switch to our brush. Once again, using a soft brush with black, we're going to paint out the parts that we don't need. Okay, so in this case, it's those trees, it's all that stuff that doesn't belong, but we want the fireball. Okay, because a fireball looks amazing. Now we want to change the blending mode. Okay, so we're clicking the left part of the layer where the actual thumbnail is. We're going to try a blending mode, something like overlay, something like soft light. Okay, basically something that's going to look really intense on this explosion. But like I said, don't sweat it too much if it doesn't look that great just yet, because we are going to really make it look cool right away. I'm going to go with, let's see, I like overlay. It's nuts. It's intense. Now it's probably a little too saturated, so I'm going to go to this layer and I'm going to go Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. I'm going to just pull that down a little bit so it's not so insanely intense. But you can see how that mushroom cloud and that explosion have joined. They look pretty good. All right, they've joined nicely. We even got a cloud in the original picture, which is kind of enhancing that a little bit as well. Okay, so good. We're off to a great start. Now, like I said, don't worry too much if you don't like what you've got here to start. We are going to tweak it. I'm going to get in the habit here of naming my layers. I'm going to call this Explosion. Whoops. And I'm going to call this one Mushroom Cloud. Okay. And we'll just leave the background for right now. So this is starting to come together a little bit here. Next, what we want to do is we want to use a custom brush. Now, I recommend one that I've been using forever is www.brushking.eu, EU for Europe. It's a great site. We can search for all sorts of Photoshop brushes. For example, smoke, or, you know, here's a bunch of smoke brushes. There's a couple pages of smoke brushes. Oh, I guess not. But you can pretty much find brushes for whatever you want here. And I've already got them, so I'm just going to close this. But this is a great site, and they're all free, so it's excellent. So, the brushes I've got is Volcanic and Cloud. We're going to load Volcanic right now, and the way you do that, go into Photoshop, click the brush tool, go up to the top where you can set your brush options up here. Click this little gear, easy to miss. Click that, go to Load Brushes. I've already got these files on my desktop, but inside the brush folder, we're going to load Volcanic. We're going to open it. And you won't see anything really change other than the fact that the brushes get added to the bottom of your existing brush set. So we can see them down here. They've been added. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select one, and you can see that your brush becomes a custom shape. I'm just going to click just to show you that that makes kind of a cloudy sort of, almost like a splatter. Now, if we were to imagine that this was real, which it's not, well, thankfully it's not, but if this was real, as the smoke was closer to the explosion, it's going to be brighter. So what we're going to do is we're going to click our foreground color right here, and we're going to pick a color that's close to the explosion. An orange or even this dark reddish, whatever, something close to the color of the fire in the explosion. Okay, I'm going to go with kind of a darker orangey color. I'm going to just click down here. Oh, I forgot a very important step. I need to make a new layer for this. So I'm going to click, I'm going to call it Smoke. and I'm going to start clicking down here. Now it's going to look really bad. Okay, I'm going to use different brushes so that it looks a little more random. Okay, but it's probably going to look way too intense. It's not going to look that great to start. Okay, something like that. We're just building up a base layer of smoke. Now the cool thing is, because this is on its own layer, we can pull down the opacity so that it looks a little more like smoke. We can also take that layer and go image adjustments, hue and saturation, and we can tweak the color of the smoke so we can find one that kind of matches that explosion a little bit closer, somewhere like that. Okay, again, this smoke that's close to the explosion is getting this, basically the reflection of this fireball in it, and we're going to make the smoke darker as we move out. Okay, so that's the smoke. Now I think we need some light trails to make this look a little more epic, because right now it just kind of looks like this explosion is pasted on in the left side of this picture. So this is a tricky step. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new layer. We're going to call it light rays. Okay? Once you have the layer created, you're going to go down at the bottom of your tool set and set your colors to the default colors. The shortcut is D, or you can click the two little chips right here. Black and white is the default. That's what you want. Then we're going to go to Filter, Render, Clouds, and it's basically going to generate clouds that cover up everything. That means you did it right. Now the reason I'm using clouds is because I can use the dark and light areas to create a very neat effect. We're going to choose the light rays layer, make sure it's still selected. We're going to go to Filter, Blur, Radial Blur. And we are going to set it to zoom. Now, the neat thing about Radial Blur is you can click inside this window and choose where you want the blur to come from. So we want it on the left-hand side, about midway, and we want to change the amount pretty high so that we get long streaks coming off of it. And watch what happens when we hit OK. We get this crazy starburst sun type of look bursting from the center point, or close to the center point of where that explosion is. All right? Now this is one of the only times I'm going to say to do this. We're going to go to Filter, we're going to go to Render, and we're going to create a lens flare. Man, I never thought I'd be saying that in a tutorial. But we are going to set the lens flare to the center of the burst that we just created. So right about there. And really, it doesn't matter which lens flare you like. I kind of like the second one, 35mm prime. The thing is, we just don't want to make it overly intense, too bright. We're going to hit OK. So there we go. We got this insanely bright event that's happening over here. It's creating this big lens flare. This is what we would expect if there was a nuclear blast happening. Now the way we can actually use this is we can change the blending mode, something like overlay, and you'll see that it's a very subtle effect. It's basically just making light come from where that explosion is. You could try soft light, you could try hard light, doesn't look good. We try vivid light, it's insane. I like vivid light, it looks crazy, but I think I'm gonna pull down the opacity a bit. Because let's be honest, a nuclear blast would be pretty intense. So I think it would be something like that. All right, now you can tweak it to what you think looks good, that's fine. But I'm gonna go with that. I think that's pretty crazy looking. So you can see basically what it's doing is it's creating all these lines radiating from the center of the explosion, exactly like what would happen if there was super, super bright light coming from an explosion and the light is piercing the clouds as it comes towards you. Okay, so it's a nice effect. It's easy to do and it's a nice effect. All right, so we're getting somewhere here. Next, we're going to use the custom brush for the clouds, and I'm actually going to create a layer, and I'm going to call it Clouds. and I'm going to set my brush to black. It already is. But this time I'm going to load. Okay, so you go up here to the brush options, go to the gear, go to load. This time we're going to load cloud brushes. Like I said, as the smoke moves away from the actual blast site, it's going to get darker. So now we can use these dark cloud brush set that I've got here, and we're going to click in some clouds. Now, like I said, it's good to randomize it. Don't make them all look the same, it'll look horrible. And it's going to look very dark and very intense at first. We're going to fix that. But for now, we're just going to put random clouds into this picture radiating from the blast site. Okay? So you can see it doesn't look that great yet. It will at the end, I promise. But basically, create some clouds that are coming from that blast site. Now, like I said before with the previous clouds, because they're on their own layer, we can adjust the opacity to increase or decrease the intensity of those clouds as much as we want. Okay, so if we're finding that those are a little too intense, we can also go to Image Adjustments, Brightness, Contrast. We can brighten them up a bit too. Oh, that's not going to work because it's black. Just realize that. Okay, so we can, again, we can tweak our opacity, and that's basically going to make the clouds look more or less see-through, all right, depending on what effect we want. So there we go. Now we got that's kind of looking cool. Next, we need to include some sort of a character in this, I feel anyways. So we are going to open the Power Armor. Power Armor, there he is. And I found this picture and I thought, man, it's perfect. He's basically running from an explosion. Now the lighting's going to be a little weird, different than ours. But for the most part, this picture is pretty great. Now, there's a lot of ways I can make a selection. In fact, there are probably over 20 different ways I can make a selection. But for the sake of going quickly and getting a decent selection right away, I'm going to use the magnetic lasso tool. The reason I'm going with that option is because we have quite a bit of contrast between the body of this guy and the explosion behind him. So if I click near the bottom where I'm going to start, all I have to do is move my mouse along, and it tries to figure out where what I'm selecting exactly. All right, now it needs a little bit of help, so every now and then you'll hear me clicking to basically tell it where I want the point to go. But for the most part, it's pretty intelligent. It does a decent job of figuring out where we want that line to be. Now trust me, there are a lot of ways to do this. We could use a quick mask, we could use a layer mask, we could try to use magic wand. There are a lot of ways we can try to create this selection, but in terms of making a selection very quickly and easily as a starting point, the magnetic lasso is great. Where it is not great is as a final selection, because you still have to tweak it afterwards. Okay? So I'm just kind of going along. All I'm doing is moving my mouse. I'm not clicking. I'm simply moving my mouse along, and it is intelligently figuring out where I want it to go. Now, here's a case where it's not so smart, where the color is similar to the background color. You can see what's happening. It is having a heck of a time there. We're going to have to fix that up. But I'm simply moving my mouse along, basically tracing it without ever having to click. And it is trying to figure out what exactly I want it to do automatically. Okay, so we're going to continue along. You'll see that I'm going to just go around the entire character, just like this. And now as I go quicker, of course, it's going to screw up a little more because I'm going too fast for it. But we'll be able to fix all that up in a second. So I'm going to continue all the way around. Here we go. We're almost all the way around. Like I said, the cool thing about this is you don't have to do a whole heck of a lot of work. If there's a lot of contrast between the image and the background, it does a pretty good job of removing it or figuring it out on its own. Okay, you have to go back to where you started in order for it to be successful. Okay, and you can see now that I've got a good starting point of a selection. Now I'm also going to use the magic wand, and I have add to selection on, and I'm going to simply, actually I'm going to hold option in this case. I'm going to subtract from my selection because these little parts in here I need to get rid of. I don't want to add them to my existing selection. I want to get all these little pieces in between and quickly with the magic wand because they are pretty solid in color. Now, like I said, there's so many ways to do this. Use the method that you are most comfortable with. All right? Next, once I have that, one of the ways I like to refine my mask is to go into quick mask mode. And basically, if you haven't used quick mask mode before, the parts that are red will not be selected, and the parts that are filled in with the natural color will be. And the way you control this is you use a brush. I'm going to switch back to a regular brush, just like that, with a hardness of about 90% here, pretty hard. And I'm going to paint back the parts that it missed. It's very important that you're painting with white to bring those parts back, just like so. All right? Now you can see that if I had started with quick mask, rather than just using it now to fix it up, it's going to take a lot longer. All right, and whether or not it's actually going to be more accurate, it's up for debate because honestly, if I can save time and it's still looking decent, then I'm happy. All right, so I'm just going along, tweaking it, fixing it, getting all the little pieces that it missed. And I think that this is way faster, personally, than having to trace the entire picture or paint a quick mask selection or even quick magic wand in most cases. All right, so I'm just going along. You can see that I missed a big chunk down here, bringing that all back. Nice. Okay, so you can see that that did it pretty successfully, pretty nicely. There are little parts that I could go and tweak. I'm not too worried about it for the tutorial. I'm just getting it close. Okay, I could go and just kind of refine it a bit. But for the most part, that is pretty darn good. And if I want to add more, or if I want areas to not be included, I basically just press the X key to switch to black. And then I can change them to red so that they don't show up. Command 0, that looks pretty good to me for the tutorial's sake. I'm going to click Quick Mask one more time, right at the bottom of the tools here. And now I've got my selection. That was pretty quick. Now I'm going to use the Move tool, and I'm going to bring the power armor into the background. And I'm going to put them off to somewhere on the side here, somewhere about here. Okay, to me that looks decent. You can see all the little parts I missed. I could just kind of touch this up with a bit of an eraser, especially in the hand because it's in such a, I guess, kind of an important area where you're going to see that difference. So I got to make sure I use a pretty high hardness brush here to get rid of that. So I'm just going to kind of clean that up a bit. Now, the problem with this right now is that it looks like he was just pasted in here. He really doesn't look like he belongs in the scene because he has different color. His shadows don't exactly match. There's a number of issues. And we're just going to tweak it a little bit to help that. All right? So, okay, we'll leave it at that for now. Okay, so working on the color of the armor so that it matches our scene a little bit better, we're going to go to Image. We're going to go to Adjustments. We're going to go Hue and Saturation again. Now, you might not use hue and saturation this much, and that's okay. But I think it's probably the quickest way to adjust the overall colors in a picture so that they match or come close to the picture that you're working on or that you're trying to match. All right, so I am just tweaking them a little bit. After I'm done with that, okay, I'm going to just bring that up a little bit. I want it to go a little more yellow, so that looks like it's a little more yellow. After that, I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Brightness and Contrast, because you'll notice that our background image is very contrasty. I'm going to bring up the brightness a bit, and I'm going to bring up the contrast. And that's going to create more difference between the light and dark areas, which is exactly what we want in this picture, just to help it fit in a little more. Okay, I'm going to move them a little bit. See, some parts are not perfect, but again, we'll be able to fix that up shortly. All right. So there he is. So we've done this hue and saturation. Now, if we look at before and after, I'm just going to go to my window history, and we can take a look at him before. That was a very quick touch-up. But you can see how he's reddish. He doesn't really match the scene. It's better once we've tweaked it a little bit. Still not perfect. Once again, there's a quick way that we can get rid of this white edge, a method I just showed you earlier. But holding Command or Control on the PC, we are going to click the layer with the power armor. You'll notice that by doing that and clicking the thumbnail, he becomes a selection. What we're going to do is we're going to go select, modify, we're going to contract the selection by 2 pixels again. That should be enough to get rid of that white edge. Now, if I was to hit delete right now, I would actually get rid of him and just leave the white edge. So what I got to do is I got to go select, invert, and now I hit delete. And you'll notice that when I Command D to deselect, I have removed some of that edge. Actually, for whatever reason, it didn't work. So hang on. Oh, I deselected instead of hitting delete. There we go. Okay. So check it out. If I look at before and after, okay, I have removed those white edges from the entire outline of this guy. I could have also done feather if I wanted to, just to make it a little bit softer because now it's a little harsh, but that's okay. Next, we're going to make another smoke layer. This is going to be called Smoke 2. This is going to be the smoke in front of our character. Okay, so I'm just going to move him a little bit. I think he'd look a little bit better. Maybe a little over here so we can read the sign. And if you want to shrink him down, Command T, just to adjust the size of him so he fits this poster a little bit better. Screw the sign. I'm going to put him over it. Okay. Smoke 2, make sure it's selected. Go to your brush tool, make sure it's set to black. Let's choose our cloud brushes once again. This time, we're going to go pretty big, and we are actually clicking over our power armor, okay? So I'm actually clicking over top of him, and I'm actually going to make those clouds quite big. All right, so I am clicking over top of the subject in this case. And basically, what I want to do here is make it look like he's kind of walking through or coming out of the smoke that we've got in this scene, right? It helps to tie everything together better. Okay, so whoops, I don't like that one. Go a little like there. Okay, now I don't want to go overboard on this. I could add tons of smoke. Not going to go crazy. Okay, and if you look, I probably already went too much. There's the smoke that's on that layer. But I always have that choice of bringing down my opacity after to help us see through to what's behind that smoke. So I'm at about 90% there. Again, I could tweak this back a little bit more. Same with our other clouds. I can bring it back so it's just not as intense. That's the beauty of having everything on layers because we can always adjust it after. Now, again, I talked about this briefly. His shadows don't really match what's going on here. Okay, this one I guess it does. But to me it looks like there's possibly another explosion happening off to the right-hand side that's lighting up his other side. Those are the kind of details we don't really worry too much about. But you know, we could, if we wanted to be more careful and figure a way out to match our shadows, we could use things like dodge and burn to create shadows, or we can create a bit of a darker edge on him. One way that I like to do that is if I'm on the guy's layer, okay, the layer of the subject, I can go to Effects and I can go to Inner Shadow. Now it's a very simple way of adding a shadow to the edge of your subject. And you'll notice that it tends to look pretty fake. So I kind of just go a little bit soft, just a tiny bit. Now, you know what? Now, I'm not even liking how this looks at all. You know, but sometimes that really helps to separate the subject, to make it look like he's you know, got a bit of a shadow on the edge. Like I said, you can also do dodge and burn, but we're going to just skip that for this particular tutorial. Next, we want to bring all the colors of this creation together so that it looks like they belong together. And one real easy way to do that is to select your top layer, go down to the bottom to your adjustment layers, and choose Photo Filter. Now, Photo Filter is great. I love Photo Filter because what it does, you get this little window that pops up. You can tie all the colors together, all the hue of the colors, so that it looks like they belong. Now, for this particular one, I liked blue. I thought that looked pretty darn intense, pretty cool. Again, personal preference. You may like that. You may want to go with a different one. There's tons of options. I really liked the way blue looked in this case. I thought it really added to the scene in a nice way. Okay, so that is looking great. All right, you can see all the different things we've added to this original picture, building it up one layer at a time to this pretty good looking kind of composition here that we have at the end. There's one last thing for us to do, and that is to put the Fallout logo in. We're going to go to Logo. We're going to open it with Photoshop. We're going to drag it into our background, and we're going to make sure that it's on top of everything. I'm going to press Command-T, shrink it down. Hold Shift while you do this so you don't stretch the crap out of it. Shrink it down and place it right there. All right, now you can put it where you want. You don't have to put it there. Okay, but we're going to put it off in the corner just like that. And you can see now that we have a pretty decent looking wallpaper for our Fallout poster. Okay, slash wallpaper or whatever. Again, we'll build it up from scratch. There's the original. There's the mushroom cloud, the explosion, the smoke, the light rays, the clouds, the power armor, the smoke in front, the photo filter, which in my opinion is the most important, ties it all together, and the logo. All right? I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I hope it helps you with your creations. Again, some things in this tutorial I probably could have spent more time making it look better, but for the sake of the time that we had to spend on this, I think it looks pretty cool. So I'd love to see what you guys can come up with. Thanks for watching. Till next time.